Started. So welcome to today's webinar, topic of which is tips for applying to a PhD program. We, of course, would like you to come to the University of Alabama, but a lot of what we're going to be talking about is sort of general guidance on how this works in the United States. But again, a lot of the examples are going to focus on the University of Alabama. Now, a lot of this guidance is also going to be applicable to students applying to research master's programs. But again, really, this particular seminar is aimed at those interested in a PhD program. So I'm going to start with a little bit about myself. So my name is Andrew Goodliffe. I am Associate Dean for Admissions, Recruitment, and Fellowships at the University of Alabama. So that means I oversee the admissions process, recruitment process, and very importantly, some of the funding that our students get. I've been in this role for about 12 years, so I've seen a lot of applications, got a lot of experience in what works with an application and what doesn't. Now, I'm also a professor at the University of Alabama, and I have I've had my own lab at the university. I am a geophysicist, so I've had a lot of funding through groups like the National Science Foundation, Department of Energy. I've had a large research group guiding a lot of students, recruiting a lot of students, graduating a lot of students. So I've got a lot of experience from both sides of this. And then I also originally came to the US as an international student. So I'm very, very sympathetic and empathetic to our international applicants and sort of steps they have to go through and the visa process. So I really want to provide a lot of help and guidance to help you get into that really good program that you want to be in. So I do want to, as we progress in this talk, one quick thing I want to mention, we do have the chat disabled, but what I want you to do, if you have questions, use the Q&A option, so the question and answer option, to pose any questions. As I'm talking, it will be hard for me to answer questions in real time. So, any sort of key questions you might have, do save those to the end. That will give me the best chance of seeing those. We are going to have a couple of times, though, when I do want your input. So I will ask you to specifically provide input to the Q&A section. So, of course, the first step is to find a university. In the United States, there are about 4,500 to 5,000 universities. There's a lot, and there's a large range of different types of universities. There's public universities, and then within public universities, there's the big state flagship universities. So the University of Alabama is one of those big state flagship doctoral universities that offers hundreds of different programs, very similarly to University of Texas or University of Michigan, with sort of that sort of scale of university. The public universities are a lot of smaller universities. So in Alabama, there are some smaller regional universities, which are still very good, but we really dwarf them in the size of the university and the number of programs that we offer. You've then got private universities, and within the private universities, you've got the for-profit universities, which if you're looking at PhD programs, I really would advise avoiding those. And then, as you're mostly interested in sort of the research side of things, there's a couple of important things to look at in the United States. And one of those is what we call the Carnegie ranking. So the University of Alabama is an R1 Carnegie ranked university or classified university. And so that puts us in sort of the top tier of research universities. So when you're looking for PhD programs, focusing your search on those R1 universities in the US, so that's a very small subset of that 4,000 universities in the US. And then also looking at R2s as well, because there's a lot of good research being done at sort of the next tier down. But if you're looking at an R1 university, and again, examples are University of Alabama, University of Texas, University of Michigan, Princeton, Harvard, the big names. If you're looking at one of those R1 universities, you know that it's a big university. You know that they're going to have high quality faculty because the best faculty will only consider working at R1 universities. You know they're going to have good funding. You know they're going to have a good reputation. You know there are going to be good job opportunities. So I want you to keep that in mind when you're thinking about what universities to go to. But really at PhD level, you should also be thinking about who is the faculty member that you want to work with. And so if you have a particular research interest, who is that key faculty member who's going to help you further your career? Now, I want to ask sort of a bigger picture question, and this is where I'm going to ask you to put input into the Q&A box. So my question to you all is, if you are going to be a good applicant for a PhD program, what is one of the most important skills that you must develop? There's not a correct answer for this. There's not a wrong answer. There's one thing I'm going to focus on, but please put your put your thoughts into the Q&A box. What are some of those really important skills that we're looking for when we're looking at PhD applicants? So I see someone has put communication skills. Yes, very, very important. So research skills, again, very, very important. Let's see, research skills, writing and research. Okay. I'll wait for a couple more people. Time management and independent working. Independent working is very important for a PhD student. Publication track, so that can be very important. Have you published already? Research skills and the ability to tell your academic story. Effective research skills. Passion for what you're doing. Well, that's a good one. That's something that is probably one of the best predictors of success. Program alignment, excellent. Collaborative skills. All right, so in the next slide, I'm going to focus in on one of those skills. And this is really wrapped up in a lot of the input you provided. So for a PhD student, we're looking at very good critical thinking skills. And so this falls under research skills. This can fall under communication. When you're a PhD student, you're going to have a problem that you're going to solve, a research problem. And so being able to show that you have the ability to think through a problem and come up with solutions is really something that you have to have for a PhD. And so, someone mentioned passion. That goes into this as well. So the passion to follow this problem, to come up with those solutions. But really, if we look at all the best researchers out there, they have excellent critical thinking skills. They have a wonderful ability to think through a problem and come up with novel solutions. As a PhD student, the one thing that all PhD students are going to be required to do is come up with a new idea. So that is the definition of a PhD. You have come up with a new idea that no one else has thought of before. And so Critical thinking skills are very, very important. And they're wrapped up in all the other things you mentioned in the chat. And all those things are very, very important. All right, let's move on to some basics. So application materials. And we're going to sort of gradually dive in deeper in some of these. So when you apply to a program at a US university, there's some basic things that you're going to be asked for. And I do want to say that, some universities may have particular requirements that this doesn't cover, but these are sort of the basic things. You're going to fill out an application form that tells us something about your background, your address, the schools you went to, all that sort of thing. You're going to submit transcripts. Those transcripts are going to tell us about your academic record, your GPA, your scores, CGPA, whatever the system is in your country. You're going to have to submit some letters of recommendation or have the university request those letters of recommendation. So those people who are probably professors or supervisors from a job you've had are going to tell us about you. They're going to tell us about your skills, your ability to work with people, etc. You're going to submit a statement of purpose, and I'm going to go into that one in detail. You're going to submit most likely a CV or a resume. It tells us a little bit about your professional development. You may have to submit an English language score, depending on what country you're from, etc. And then for some applicants, you might have to submit a writing sample. Some PhD programs require a research proposal, and then some also still require, say, a GRE or a GMAT. So this is sort of the basic core of that application. Now, a very common question I get from applicants is they send me an email, says, my GPA is, let's say, 3.9. Can I get in? Especially for PhD programs, that is not a question that any program director or recruiter can answer. Because when we're looking at an application, the GPA is just one part of that application. It's probably not even the most important part of the application. It's one part that we're going to consider. Most universities are going to take all those materials that I had in that previous slide, and they're going to analyze those and look at the application holistically. Now, you've probably heard this term as you've sort of been doing your web search. But what I want you to do is I want you to put in the Q&A, what does this mean when we say that we are looking at an application holistically? What do we mean? So again, just put your answers into the Q&A. And again, there's not a right or a wrong answer. We're not grading you on this. But I just want you to sort of, I want to force you to think about this. Okay, so good. We got one input here. You're looking at many factors, not just one. Viewing someone as a complete candidate, their potential contributions to the university as a well-rounded student. That's wonderful. Let's get one more, and then we'll keep talking about this. It means from different perspectives, the thesis, that statement of purpose, their work experience, and last person here, holistic means looking at everything. So it is. I mean, we're looking at all of those things. So it also included in this is if you've been communicating with a faculty member, if you sent emails, we're looking at all of this. I just saw that David put viewing each application's no matter the nationality as the same. And I do want to emphasize where someone's from is not a factor in our application review process. What we're looking for is the best students, regardless of where they're from. Doesn't matter whether they're domestic, they're international. We just want to bring in the best students. But we're looking at all of these materials. Now, to some programs, it might be that one particular material is more important. To others, it might be that another is more important. But never just focus on your GPA. We've admitted a lot of truly excellent students whose GPA was not that strong, but they might have had excellent work experience or internship experience, etc. Okay. Thinking holistically, what is the goal of a graduate program application? What we're doing as a university is we are assessing, do you have the potential for success at the University of Alabama? That's the question we are asking. So some departments may be looking at particular classes that you have taken. They might be looking at the statement of purpose, but the overall goal is, do you have the potential for success? And so if we look specifically at letters of recommendation, we're looking for information on your work ethic, your skills, how you work in a group, etc. The transcripts, we're looking at your academic performance. And when we're looking at your academic performance, the overall grade is probably not as important as the grade in specific classes that we view as predictors of success. And then the writing samples, so even the statement of purpose, we're looking at how well you formulate ideas and solutions. And again, different programs are going to put different weight on different parts of that application. Let's focus in on the statement of purpose. So when I'm talking about the statement of purpose, I'm talking very generally. Always look at the web page of specific programs because they may have specific requirements. However, in general, the statement of purpose has 3 parts to it. Number 1 is, what have you done in the past that has prepared you for the program? So what is your academic foundation? So this should be restricted to things that are applicable to your future program. So stuff you did in high school is probably not relevant at this point. This is not your life story. You're talking about your academic preparation, the degrees you've done, the experience you've got, the research projects you've done, the internships, that sort of thing. What is the foundation that we are going to build on at the University of Alabama? The next part is, why do you want to go to a particular university and/or program? And I want to state that this is the part that is often poorly developed. A lot of applicants will write one statement of purpose, and then they'll simply change the program, the university name. That is not acceptable. You need to have at least a good paragraph on why do you want to apply to the University of Alabama, and why, for example, do you want to apply to our aerospace program? And then maybe even why you want to work with a particular faculty member. We want to see that you have considered us seriously. And then I also want to see, what are your goals after finishing the program? I want to see that you've thought about that. Those could totally change when you come to the University of Alabama, but I want to see that you've thought about that. Especially at the master's level, we often reject people because their career goals are not compatible with where the program can get you to. So that part is very important. So just to summarize, we need to know, why should we consider your application? Have you seriously considered us? And are your future goals a good fit? So this part is very important, the statement of purpose. And I know that many programs probably consider this to be more important than your grades. Now, next question. This is where I'm going to ask you for some input again. What's more important, your statement of purpose or your grades? So put your answers into the Q&A. So what is more important, your statement of purpose or your grades? And I'm going to discuss this afterwards. Okay, so got a couple of answers here, statement of purpose, excellent. So I want to give you a particular example. So I was talking with one of our program directors recently, and they stated that they could have a student who has near perfect grades, but if their statement of purpose is not good, they're not going to consider them. However, another student who has good grades, they're not great, they're just good, but they have an excellent statement of purpose, that's the primary student that they're going to go after. So one thing I do advise you to do is when you're talking to universities, don't go to them and say, hey, if I have this GPA, can I get in? Because it's not a question we can answer. We need to look at everything. All right, next slide. I do want to state that some universities also have other writing samples, and some of our programs at the University of Alabama also have other writing samples. These could be samples of your past work, could be a paper from a class that you've taken. If you're looking at a PhD, there's the chance that you have a published paper. Though we do expect that if you're going to use a published paper as part of your application, it's going to be peer-reviewed and in a high impact factor journal. So unfortunately, nowadays, there's a lot of predatory journals around that really are not impactful. Avoid those. Really aim for those well-known, well-respected journals. Some programs, including one of the programs I directly run, also requires a research proposal. And really the goal there is to see that you are familiar with the field and how your work might contribute. I'm going to talk about in a moment a little bit more about how to make sure your writing is good in all of these examples. But in general, when we're looking at your writing, we have some really important things. We're looking at, can you formulate an idea, argue for that idea, and come to a well thought out conclusion? So for the statement of purpose, that idea is that you should come to the University of Alabama. You are proposing that idea. Can you organize your thoughts clearly and coherently? We want to see that you can write well and clearly. When we're thinking about a statement of purpose, don't make it long and lengthy. We don't want to read 5-page statements of purpose. If you can say everything you need to say in 1 page, and you can write it well, that's really, really good. And then overall, we're looking at, do you exhibit strong critical thinking skills? Less important, but still important, do you use grammar correctly? Are there issues with your spelling? That's stuff that we can work on when you get to the University of Alabama. And especially for some of our international students, English may not be the first language. So we're actually we're okay with that. We're going to train you how to do that properly when you get here. All right, CV and resume. Even if it's not required, I would advise submitting a CV or resume, because this just puts all of your past success into one easy to digest format. So this is where you can specifically spell out your prior research experience, presentations at conferences, peer-reviewed publications, internships, what university you've been to. And then in your statement of purpose or other materials, you sort of expand on that. But I often find myself, when I'm looking at applications, going to the statement of purpose first, just for an overview, and then I'll go in and read the statement I'll read the statement. So I'll go to the CV first, and then I'll read the statement of purpose. All right, test scores. I know that we have all learned to fear these. In the United States, a lot of universities, including the University of Alabama, are moving away from the admission test scores, so the GRE or the GMAT. So if we think about 6 years ago, pretty much all of our programs required the GRE or GMAT. Today, it's probably about 5 to 10% of our programs require the GRE or the GMAT. If a program does require a GRE or GMAT, make sure you know what their minimum score is. Take the test well ahead of any program deadlines. And I'm going to talk about deadlines in a moment. If you don't get the score that you want to get, then you'd have a chance to retake it. And then really the most important thing with these tests is to practice, practice, practice. Take every opportunity that you can to practice taking the test. Because unfortunately, a lot of getting a good score is just practicing and knowing how you're going to tackle that test. So the reality is a lot of programs do still require this. So you might have to take this. And I know it's not fun. We do understand that. A lot of you may also have to take an English language score. Now, for English language score, every university is going to define a minimum. It might be a minimum overall score. There might be a minimum speaking subtest score or something like that. Make sure you understand what those minimums are. For most universities, getting the minimum score is all that is needed. There's no particular benefit to getting a score that's significantly higher than the minimum. We have determined that if you meet that minimum, you can operate as a student at the University of Alabama. So that's really all we're looking for. All right. I do want to specifically talk about deadlines. The very important thing is that when you see a deadline, you need to apply long in advance of that deadline. So I would advise applying at least 2 to 3 months before any deadlines. So the reasons for this, there's many reasons. One of the main reasons is that you don't necessarily know what some of the funding deadlines are in the university. So, for example, at the University of Alabama, one of the ways that we fund students is through what we call a graduate council fellowship. The first deadline for graduate council fellowships has actually already passed. It was actually mid-January. So if you're in a program and the deadline is March and you only just make that deadline, you've already missed the deadline for funding. So applying early ensures that you have the best funding opportunities available. Many programs, even though the deadline is, say, February 1, they may be admitting people as applications come in and giving out funding. It may well be by the time that they reach the deadline, all the funding's gone. Another reason why you want to apply well in advance of deadlines is if there's any problems with your application, if, for example, there's an issue with one of your transcripts, the document isn't quite right or something like that, it gives you a chance to correct that. And it's very common when students submit applications that we have to reach out to the applicant to get additional information or get a different document. So applying early means that there's enough time to fix that before the deadline. The best applicants for fall admission to PhD programs are applying in October, November of the previous year. So if you're looking at fall 2026, you need to be looking at applying in October or November of 2025. Again, This is a guideline. This allows you the best opportunities for funding. It doesn't mean you can't get in if you apply late, but I always advise applying earlier. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is emailing professors. So if you're looking at a PhD program or a research master's, you've probably been emailing professors at a university to see if they have any opportunities for you. These emails are very, very, very important. When you write these emails, I need you to spend some time finessing these emails, making sure that your grammar is correct, making sure that you're using complete sentences, because this email is the first impression that a professor has of you. Also, at most universities, most big universities, those emails become part of your application. So for many of the emails that students send to us at the University of Alabama, I can actually see those emails from the application system. So I can see how well you're writing. So this is another thing that we're looking at. We're looking at your written communication skills. Now, when you send one of those emails, it is very, very important that you focus on your research interests and how these fit with the professor. So emailing the professor saying, hey, dear Dr. Smith, I'm very interested in your research. I saw this paper that was very, very interesting to me. I would really love to pursue research along those lines in your lab, etc. Many of the emails that we get, the first question is, do you have a funded position? Do not, under any circumstances, discuss funding in initial emails. And certainly don't make it the first thing in that email. To the professor, again, this is our first impression of you. To the professor, now to them, they view funding as the primary concern for you. And we know funding is important, but you're not going to get into a program because you want funding. The reason you get into a program is because your research interests are a good fit and you've got a good academic background. So I always suggest not discussing funding in initial emails. If there is a good fit and if a professor does show interest in having you as a student, the conversation will naturally move towards funding. We all understand that you need funding. Now, also keep your emails short. So, a page at the very, very most. I get a lot of these sorts of emails each day, and we're all very, very busy. If I see a short email that's a couple of paragraphs, I can go in and I can handle that right now. If I get an email that's a couple of pages long, I'm going to do that later. And later could be the next day, it could be in a week's time, but it's going to take me longer to reply to those long emails. All right. I want to say a little bit about how to make sure that your writing in an application is excellent. So do remember, especially in the STEM fields, and I do understand that some of you are probably not in the STEM fields, especially in the STEM fields, graduate education is not a solo activity. You're going to be working with a team. So use your team when you're putting together this application. So at the University of Alabama, we have an absolutely wonderful writing center that can help students with their writing. So our students, when they're applying to other universities, we encourage them to go to the writing center. We encourage them to go to the career center to help with those documents. Those two groups might help improve their statement of purpose, their CV, might help improve that writing. You also have current professors probably who can help you with this. Share your materials with them. They have all been through this graduate application process. And so almost certainly they will be willing to provide input on your writing. And then you could have someone in your family have a look at this. And this might help them understand the sort of stuff you're interested in. You could have your best friend look over this, but never send in any of these documents, including these emails, without having other people proofread this. So that's very, very important, because I want to make sure that even though you're an excellent student, you have every opportunity, and that a poorly written email or a poorly written statement of purpose is not holding you back. I want to make sure that these are not barriers. All right. Lastly, I want to mention a very important person in most programs in the United States. And this is the graduate program director. So, for example, at the University of Alabama, every one of our 160 different graduate programs has a program director. That program director can help you with program-specific application requirements. If the deadline is not on the web page and you want to know what it is, they're a good person to ask. If the details of the statement of purpose are not on the web page, the program director can help guide you in what they are looking for. So I see a lot of people, I'm on a lot of groups on, things like Reddit, and there's people asking, what does a statement of purpose need to look like? How do I send an email? Those are never questions that you should ask to a group like Reddit, because it's full of people like you who really don't know the answer. Always go to the grad program director. Any other information that you might get from your friends, that's a rumor. You need to go to the program director, and they will tell you what the actual requirements are. And one thing I did emphasize there is asking them these questions if that information is not on the web page. So make sure that you do look at the program's web page, you look at grad school's web page, etc., to see if you can find that information first. And then, we can help fill in any gaps. So that program director is absolutely a key person in this search. All right. So before we go into questions, I do want to go through a couple of slides that really tell you about the University of Alabama. So the University of Alabama is in the southeast of the US. And when you're looking for universities, I really do encourage you to look at universities in the southeast. I've lived in the southeast of the US for 22 years. I've lived all over the world and all over the US. And I can honestly say that the southeast is one of the friendliest, most welcoming parts of the US. So University of Alabama, we're a flagship public research university. So flagship means we are the big university in Alabama. So there's other universities, but we are by far the biggest. We've got the largest faculty, we've got the largest student body, we've got the most funding. And then public research university means that we've got bachelor's, master's, doctoral degrees, etc., and postdocs. We've been around almost 200 years. We were founded in 1831. So I mentioned at the very start, we're an R1 research university. So we are in that top tier of the Carnegie Research Classification. We have a total of 41,000 students on campus, and about 6,000 of those are graduate students pursuing master's and doctoral programs. And we actually have about 160 master's and doctoral programs. And then if we look on our campus, we've got international students from about 80 different countries. And another one of our big selling points is we have this big, beautiful campus. It's like working in a park. It's 1,300 acres. If I walk around the perimeter of the campus, it's about 6 kilometers. So it's a very large area. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to be. Now, in terms of, the big things that we're known for a lot of things. And obviously, I can't talk about all of these in this context. But the big things we're known for, we have amazing alumni. We're known as a university that produces captains of industry. We have alumni who are leaders in industry. If you look at companies like PricewaterhouseCoopers, Lockheed Martin, those sorts of companies, their CEOs are University of Alabama alumni. If you look at companies like Google, many of the leaders in places like that are University of Alabama alumni. Outside of those fields, we're very well known for producing literary greats. So people who've done amazing writing, things like To Kill a Mockingbird's a classic book. The writer of that, Harper Lee, is a University of Alabama alumni. And then also we have extremely strong sports programs. And so a lot of the big sports greats in the US are Alabama alumni. We, of course, also have highly ranked programs in our business programs. We have a number of programs at top 10, top 20, top 30 in the country. We have amazing facilities. So our engineering and science facilities are really state of the art. If you look at particular research areas that we're very strong in, so we're very well known for our work in materials science. We actually are just in the process of installing one of the most powerful microscopes in the world, as an example. And then water research. We have a massive, very diverse water research group. And actually, a couple of the federal agencies, the United States Geologic Survey and the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, both have large facilities on our campus dedicated to water research. Already mentioned, we've got a beautiful campus, and do want to mention that Southern hospitality. Again, folks in the Southeast are tremendously friendly and will welcome you to our part of the country. So I do want to move on to the end here. So this is where I'll open up for questions. I do have a QR code here. So if you scan this QR code, this will allow you to sign up for our mailing list. And if you've attended this webinar and you sign up for our mailing list, we can also waive the application fee. But you've actually got to click on this link. Otherwise, we won't know that you attended. So my contact info is there. If you want to email me directly or WhatsApp, those are good ways to get hold of me. I'll be more than happy to answer additional questions. I do want to move to a couple of the questions that have come in while I've been talking. So one of our attendees mentioned, how important is it to get research published in a journal? So if you do have a publication in a journal, and if that journal is a well-respected journal, and it's something that our faculty are familiar with, that is definitely a bonus in your application. It is not required, because when you come into a PhD, we're going to train you how to write journal articles. But the fact that you have a journal article tells us that you can already do this. So it's a better predictor of success, but it's by no means required. I do want to emphasize that if you're publishing in journals that have poor reputations or are not broadly known in the field, that is probably a negative, because we want to make sure that you know that your writing must be impactful. So making sure that you are publishing in well-respected journals is very, very important. Another part of that question, is a thesis being published in a university database? Okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you've got if you finished a thesis, yeah, we want to know about that. And if we want to go look at it in your university database, we can do that. We have the University of Alabama has pretty much access to all databases. Another question, is it beneficial to email professors before application deadlines? So this can vary a little bit by discipline. If you're in the humanities, it's not so important. If you're in the STEM fields, yeah, I would advise emailing professors. And again, following the guidelines that I had in my slide on that topic, and being very careful with how you write that email is very, very important. At the University of Alabama, as at many other universities, especially in our engineering program, writing an email to a professor really is one of the best ways of making sure your application is considered. So if we look at some of our big engineering programs, they may get thousands of applications for a given semester. And so the fact that you've emailed a professor, you've got that professor interested in you, is a benefit, because when it comes time to decide who gets admitted, that professor is going to serve as an advocate for you. So emailing the professor can be very important. For some programs, it's absolutely required. So for example, our biology program will not consider an application if the student has not been emailing with a professor. It's the same with our geology program. Those two programs, you will not be considered if you have not been emailing. Okay, next question. What's the completion rate for graduate students at UA, particularly STEM programs? So that is going to vary a lot by program. And I'm going to tell you what the national completion rate is for a PhD student in the US. So this is not specific to the University of Alabama. This is the national rate. And it's honestly horrific. So out of all the people who start PhD programs in the US, only about 50% finish. Now, again, that's horrific. And a lot of those reasons are because life happened. Something came up in the student's life that meant they couldn't pursue that PhD, because pursuing a PhD is a lot. It's a lot of work. At the University of Alabama, our completion rates are certainly better than that national average. In the STEM fields, they're without question higher than 50%. Unfortunately, I can't tell you for particular programs, but in the STEM fields, it's going to be closer to 75%. But I can assure you that our data is better than most other universities. And that's partly because we put a huge emphasis on mentoring, making sure that professors are trained to mentor students, making sure that students are receptive to mentoring. So we're very proud of our completion rates. All right, see another question here, English language score requirements. So specifically asking about Duolingo. Our graduate school requirement is indeed that the Duolingo test is greater than or equal to 110. And that is looking at the overall score. So for the University of Alabama, the graduate school requirements are the overall score. So 6.5 on the IELTS, 79 on TOEFL, 59 on the PTE, 110 on the Duolingo. Now, some programs, particularly some of our business programs and our communication programs, do actually have higher score requirements, and they do have specific speak subtest score requirements. So always look closely at the web pages to make sure that you understand the score requirements. All right, next question. When should applications who applied for PhD programs for fall 2025 expect admission decisions? So this is really going to be a question for the program director because every program has a different deadline and every program reviews their applications in their own particular way. What I do know from my position in graduate school is we already are making a lot of offers for fall 2025. The bulk of the offers have not gone out yet. So typically we're looking at our very highest ranked applicants and making sure that we get offers into their hands as quickly as possible. So that's sort of our first round. But I'd imagine many of our programs, the peak of the offers will go out probably mid-February, March. Some might still be sending out offers in March. So it's going to vary, and I really advise you to talk with the program director for your specific program for specifics, because every program is different. Let's see, I don't see any more questions. If there are any more, please do feel free to pop them into the chat box. We've got a couple of minutes we can still take. But also just following up with me via email or WhatsApp, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And again, our goal is to make sure that the best qualified applicants get admitted. And we know that sometimes the application format is a barrier. So even though you may be excellent, the fact that you didn't know how to write a statement of purpose may be holding you back. I want to make sure that everyone has all the information possible to present themselves in the best way possible, because we want to make sure that we get those really great students. We want to make sure that you do an excellent job, and we want to make sure that you do go on to do fantastic things in your career that make us look really, really good. All right. I do see a question just came in. Is there an age restriction for PhD programs? Absolutely not. So we are looking for the best students. We don't care what their age are. We have people in PhD programs who are as young as 20. We have people in PhD programs who are as old as 85. So we just want the best students. So the average age of our graduate students at the University of Alabama is 35. So that sort of gives you an idea. So I have someone else just asked about, can't scan the code. How can I get the application fee waiver? Unfortunately, I can't give the application fee waiver over the Zoom. I guess I'd need to know more about why the QR code can't work. And I think what would be best there is to take a photo of the QR code and perhaps try and scan that later in the day. It may be a problem with your particular device. Sometimes there can be device settings which can stop the code being scanned. Let's see, Isaac just asked, are UK grading system classifications like first class and second class upper taken into consideration? Yes, absolutely. As a very large university, we are very familiar with all of the different grading scores across the world. So I particularly am very familiar with the UK system. I did my undergraduate in the UK. I actually grew up in the UK. So I'm very familiar with those. But we are familiar with pretty much every country. So one thing that does provide confusion is if people send us an email and they try translating their particular scoring system into a US GPA. Don't do that. When you're talking to us about your grades, tell us what your grades are in your particular country's grading system. We can interpret that. We're very, very good at that. it causes confusion if you try to interpret it yourself, because there's really not a good way to translate those grading systems. But we do understand that, you know, things like a first class honors degree is the best of the best. Second class, upper second class, you're really good. Once you get to lower second class, it's a little bit more questionable. But again, we understand all this, so don't worry about trying to translate grading systems. Question there, is the application fee waiver, can it be used for fall 26 or 25? You can use it for whatever semester you want to. It's probably getting late for summer, so there's no restrictions on when you can do this, use that waiver. And then when is the best time to send cold emails to potential advisors? If you're looking at applying for fall 2025, you should have already sent those. So I would always advise, you know, probably October of the previous year. Though again, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means to get the best opportunities, you should be probably doing it probably a little less than a year in advance. Remember that those professors may have limited space, so we're trying to plan out our capacity for the coming year. And if someone comes along at the last moment, even if they are truly the best student we've ever seen, we just might not have space in our lab. The unfortunate thing is we turn down a lot of really good students because applications come in late. And again, this is one of the reasons I want to do this talk, just to make sure that you knew how to have the best chances for your application. Let's see, David just asked, is writing only one of the TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo enough, or do you need scores for all? We do not need scores for all. We just need one test. So, and we typically don't care what it is. There's some programs which are still a little unsure about Duolingo and might not accept that. But in general, that's changing. So just send one test. We don't need multiple test types. And again, all you need to do is meet the minimum. All right, I am going to wrap this up now. And I do want to thank you for attending, and I do wish you good luck with your application process. And maybe I'll see you on campus at the University of Alabama. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.